Hey guys, my name is Neil and welcome to Neil Workshop Zone. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about interpreter, variables and keywords. So in our previous episode about Python programming language, we learned about why this programming language is popular, what is Python, what is Python programming language, what are its applications, IDEs, etc. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about interpreter, keywords and variables. So also, if you haven't checked out the first video, the link will be in the description. So now let's talk about interpreter. So what is interpreter? Interpreter basically emulates a physical computer. So it basically works in the background and it basically does all the process. So if you didn't know, the computer actually doesn't understand the language that you speak. So it doesn't use a normal, the English language or any language that we use. It uses binary language. So binary language only consists of zeros and ones. So for example, imagine you have hello. It takes it as 0 1 0 0 0, 0 1 0 0 0, for example. So the binary language doesn't really get the language that we speak. So the interpreter basically takes the code, makes it understandable for the computer, and when the computer gives the answer back in binary code, it turns it back into normal machine code for us to understand. So for example, to see how the the program like how the interpreter works, let me draw a small diagram. So first we have source code. Now source code is the code that we're writing in this programming language. So from source code it goes to the interpreter. So the interpreter does two jobs at the same time. So first of all, on the other side you have this compiler which compiles it into binary code, and then you have this virtual machine that we use in this programming language. Now this virtual machine checks if the syntax that you wrote is correct. Now one of the main advantages of an interpreter language is that it also checks for logical errors. So instead of just checking if you wrote the words in the correct order, it also checks if the program or the problem you did is correct or not, and if it's the correct answer to the same question. So it's also one of the huge advantages of this Python programming language. So while it checks out the keywords that you used, which we'll talk about later, then finally the interpreter, the binary code, the answer gets turned into machine code again, and you get the output. So this is how a interpreter works in the background. So it seems like a long process, but an interpreter is really fast. So yeah, this is what an interpreter is and how it works. So now that we talk about what is an interpreter, let's talk about keywords. Okay, so now let's talk about keywords. So keywords are the predetermined words that are there that you use in your Python code. So for example, all of these keywords that you have here, you use most of them in a Python code. So for example, imagine you're making a loop program. So you're doing something like if A is equals to 6 and B is equals to 7 and C is equals to A plus B, then what is C? So imagine you're writing a program like that. So in that you can use keywords like if or if else or continue or break, etc. So you can use keywords like that to make a program. So most of these are pretty self-explanatory, like if, which you can understand what if is used for even by looking at the word, or or import, pass, etc. But there are some which are a little confusing. Like for example, you have raise. So raise basically means to raise an exception. So for example, imagine you are getting multiple exceptions. So you don't understand like what is wrong with the code. You suspect that one part of the code is where the wrong is coming. So you write a small code telling that if the exception is coming from this piece of code, then raise the exception. It is coming from this piece of code. So if you run the program and if the exception is coming from that part of the code, then it will throw an exception telling this exception is coming from this part of the code. So it is used for easily identifying which part of the code is having the problem. And then there are some like lambda. So these we will we learn this as we're learning more and more things about Python programming language. But for now, let's just keep this aside. So these are basically keywords. They are used in your Python code and they're really important as you're moving on forward. So now let's talk about variables. So now let's talk about variables. So variables is an alternate name which is used for memory location, which can be used by keeping a smaller name or descriptive name. So if you didn't understand what I said, imagine you have some numbers which you need to store and remember. So imagine you have numbers like 78,982, 97,467, 789,232. You have numbers like that. But you can't remember, all of these numbers if there are too many numbers. So one of the things that you can do is you can assign a value to them. So for example, you can write something like A is equal to 78,892. B is equals to 97,467, etc. So you can store these values in these small letters. These will help you easily write the code. So instead of writing print 982, you can just type print A, and the code is finished. These also help to store the numbers really easily. So variables are used for memory location and storing the data in much simpler way. So now that we talked about variables, there are some rules that you need to follow in order to make a variable. So some of the rules are you have to start with a letter or a symbol. So you can't write something like 9a is equals to 2 because it doesn't work. So you need something like a is equals to 2 or underscore is equals to 2, etc. So that's one rule of variables. Another rule is you can use numbers. As I said, you can use numbers, but not in the first letter. And same with alphabets. So one of the other important rule is that variables are case sensitive. So if you write something like name with a capital N, name with full caps, and name with a small n, they all can have different values. So you can assign something like 77, 24, 17, etc. So case sensitive matters for variables. So that is another rule of variables. And one of the final rule is you can type the same number. So you can type something like 79 is equal to 79, because first of all it breaks that you can't start with the number, and second of all, why do you need to make a variable if you have two numbers and you have to store 79 inside of 79. So those are some of the main rules of variables that you need to use. So yeah, that is basically what variables are used for. Variables become really important, and you know, they become really important as we move forward. So this is basically how variables work. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out any new videos. And that's all folks, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.